What's up, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes delivering another MMA superstar. You know how we do it. This time it's Cub Swanson, former WEC contender, current UFC contender in the featherweight division. He's never actually dabbled into another weight class. I had to stop there for a second. But what I do know is this will be Cub's 28th fight between both organizations. What's up, Cub? How you doing?
Oh, what's going on? Yeah, I haven't done the math on it, but 28. Wow, that's a lot of fights.
Yeah, man. I mean, the guys that have walked 30 are your Jim Millers, Michael Bispings, Cowboy Cerrone's. So that's obviously established company, and you're slowly creeping up on that magical number of 30 against Giga Chikadze on May 1st. Talk about that, man. Like, seriously, that's pretty impressive. Almost 30 walks down that aisle.
If I could give any advice to the youngsters, it doesn't get easier. So don't wait for it to get easier. You don't want it to get easier. You want those nerves to kick in. So just learn to enjoy the ride. Because it just man, 28. It's this has been fun, and I love that I'm still doing it.
The other day, I'm a soccer fan, and I know you are as well, but I was watching a former Manchester United player named Phil Neville. He has a series where he interviews, legends in soccer. So next to him sat his former teammate, Wayne Rooney, and they talked about his 350 goals. And so Phil wanted to go over just a couple, and he goes, okay, so I've selected a few. And as he starts to say, like, 2007 at Chelsea, you did this. Do you remember that? And Wayne told him, he goes, I remember all of them. And he would fill in what was about to happen and how the ball went in. He goes, I vividly remember all my goals. How much do you vividly remember of all of your fights?
Well, I don't think Wayne Rooney was getting punched in the head while he was scoring goals. But I remember all my fights. It is weird. I remember having like 7-8 fights and then staring at my record and going, oh yeah, another win. It's looking better, because I started off with a loss in my career. But remembering every guy's name and just, I remember getting, talking to Joe Stevenson and him trying to remember who's that guy I fought, after so-and-so. And I'm like, how could you not remember all the guys you fought? But now I'm at that point where I'm like, what was that kid's name I fought my third fight? It's a little bit of a hard thing to remember because, you're just grinding for so many years, so many fight camps. Sometimes it kind of blends in.
Yeah. So I just happened to just go like I did the wheel on Price is Right, and I just picked out two names. And if you remember something from both fights, great. And if not, just pick one. But I looked at Ross Pearson and Tatsuya Kawajiri. Do you remember anything that like really, really like as soon as I said their names, you're like, oh, you remember explicitly about those fights?
Yeah, the Ross Pearson fight I've talked about a bunch. Because when I teach to my students, because I'm always coaching guys as well as fighting myself. So whenever I try to give an example, I try to say, hey, in this fight, I did this, and this, and try to use examples. Just because in my opinion, when you learn a move and, from an instructor, it's just a move. When you start to pull it off all the time in sparring, it becomes your move. And when you pull it off in a fight at the highest level, then it's like, it's really your move and you're kind of a master of it when you can pull it off at the highest level. So that's kind of how I've always categorized things. And so when I would explain to my students or someone I'm mentoring, it's like this move I did in this fight. So Ross Pearson is a fight that I used often. And then the Kawajiri fight, I remember just thinking like, hell yeah, he's a legend. I think the thing I love most about that fight is after the fight, I was taking pictures, like little victory pictures. Only the winner gets to take the pictures afterwards. He came over and he was super respectful and he kind of bowed and I bowed back and they started snapping pictures and we have this really cool picture of me and him just bowing to each other. And I've been to Japan twice, so I kind of understand the culture. And so it was a kind of an honor to be able to fight him and then, have that little picture where we're bowing after. That was really cool.
Man, that's awesome. And again, you're over 15 years in the sport. It's a long time. You made a career out of it. I know we've discussed this in the past. You're nearing 30 fights. You just gave us a couple nice memories off the top of your head. So you do seem to remember, a little bit about every fight. Every fight's been different. Every fight's been special. But I think like most mixed martial artists, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster in the sport. But now if you were to go talk to young kids and they were asking about your career, would you stand there and you think you could glow and smile the whole time? Like, has it really been a fun ride, or is MMA still like finding its way where the athletes are, I don't know, just looking at it as work, but not like the glory days, I guess?
I can usually discuss it with a smile. There's a couple points that if I had to talk about, there's some low points. With some injuries and back-to-back losses, it gets, it takes you back to, maybe a dark time in your life. And that's one of the hard things about this sport is when you're at this level, it becomes so much of your life that it's hard to separate, and but if I could really, if I'm talking to kids and telling them about my career, I can, beam about the great moments because there's so many, and people often ask me, well, what's your favorite one? And it's always so hard. I mean, the easy one would be the Doo-Ho Choi fight just because it's everyone else's favorite, and just kind of the lead up and then what happened afterwards with finding out I was going to be a dad is just hard to top, but realistically every fight is a different journey, and it's you never know what you're dealing with mentally, physically. So you go into these fights and everyone's a different story. So I think that you can appreciate each fight differently.
Let's talk about the journey to this particular fight. A lot of names been thrown out and mixed in with Cub Swanson as of late. This is kind of like a late notice replacement here. Can you talk a little bit about how this fight came into fruition and your thoughts on Giga when you got the announcement of that?
Yeah, it was a couple other names. I think the Gavin Tucker fight was going to happen. We were excited about that fight. And then I think Dan Ige needed an opponent. We had brief talks about me maybe stepping into doing that. But then ultimately Gavin got that fight, and I think that's going to be a great fight. And the UFC, Sean told me that I'd be getting a new opponent, and I was like, same date. He said, yeah. So I was like, cool. And they said Giga, and I was like, okay, I've known about him for a long time, and we're friendly. So yeah, all business.
You guys are both Southern California guys. Have you guys ever trained together? I know separate gyms, but I'm sure at some point maybe you guys have crossed paths.
Yeah, but it was super brief. I more knew about him because there was a time when he was possibly going to have the same manager as me, but he ended up going a different direction. But so I had known about him for a long time, and we had been in the gym together, but not really trained very much. But just mutual respect, cool dude, and I really didn't think this fight was going to happen at any point. But yeah, his name got brought up, and yeah, so I think it's an exciting matchup, and the fans will enjoy it. So why not?
We all know him as a specialist. He's just really, really, really good striker. But at this point, he's a mixed martial artist, but we do know what his striking pedigree does bring. These type of matchups, Cub, I know how competitive you can be. Do you get a kick out of fighting these type of guys more? And is this the type of fight where pretty much fans can expect fireworks?
Yeah, sometimes it's a little easier to go through a training camp and not have to focus on so many things. You could say, okay, let's get really good at this. And you can kind of predict what the other person is going to bring to the table. And that makes it a little bit easier of a camp. So I think fans can expect a great fight, and he's a good kickboxer. I think I'm a good MMA striker. So yeah, I'm excited.
I want to ask you about your name has been in the news for multiple reasons. One of them was a tweet that you had put out there, and it was basically that you believe MMA media should have 3 amateur fights before they can put out some of these opinions. And I know a lot of people came at you for it. Right away, I could tell because I've known you for so long, I kind of understood where you were coming from, but it just seemed like there were so many different opinions coming at you. Do you want to clarify that a little bit, what you actually meant, and if it was directed towards anyone? Probably George, right?
I saw his response, and it didn't seem like you were too thrilled about it. But no, I'm definitely going to blame it on you, Goes, because you're the one that got my brain moving, thinking about unpopular opinions, and it was just something I was thinking and just tweeted out. I really didn't mean too much by it. It was more of a hypothetical. Hey, wouldn't it be nice if MMA media kind of understood where we were coming from a little bit more than just as a fan, but you could experience what we experience, and you could possibly understand our process on a deeper level. And that was just wishful thinking. But when I went back and read it, I go, oh, well, it's pretty direct the way I said it. So I could see how it was taken that way. And but I do appreciate the discussion that it brought, and I thought that was pretty cool to see both sides. Just there was some arguing, but there was a lot of like just discussion that was nice. And then me and you Goes, we talked about it because I wanted to apologize to you guys if I had offended you in any way, because that was not what was my intention. But it did make me think like we both sides are kind of on the same boat. It's like I was thinking about it. Me as a fighter, if you write a story and if it offends me somehow or just makes me feel a type of way because maybe you don't understand what I was going through in this camp, because this is my life. It's like I'm doing this camp and living life and then trying to perform, and you guys get to write something about me. I think it goes both ways, where if you had to write something and a fighter was trying to attack you about it, I'm sure there's many times that media or you guys or any media is thinking the same thing, like, you guys don't understand how our job works and some pressures we might be feeling, and you don't understand like a deadline or that we have to ask this certain question, or so I think it's just kind of chalked it up to it would be nice if both sides could really understand each other a little deeper. I think it would be a better time, but I don't really know if that's that realistic.
Well, you and I are definitely going to sit down and talk about it a little bit more so that both sides can see where everybody's coming from. But I did want to ask you before we do that, is there one thing that just kind of stuck out the next morning when you read all those comments? Was there one thing from their side that stuck out in your head? Like, I never thought of that. And I'll give you one from mine because I think you do have a very solid point. There are little things in training that to the common eye, when you're watching, you look at it and you just go, I gave you the example of 2 guys being up against the cage. I think a lot of people look at that and go, okay, they're just resting right now. But man, that's some of the most tiring work is up against the cage. You wouldn't know that unless you put yourself in that grappling position, right? So in your mind, the next morning when you woke up and you read through the messages, was there anything that stuck out in your head that you said, these guys got a point here?
Well, I really felt bad, honestly, because when people started saying, oh, well, my college degrees and all my years of grinding to get to where I've gotten isn't valid. And I felt bad about that because I wasn't trying to say that at all. I, I was just saying that you're writing about a sport that you spectate, but that you just haven't felt. And I just believe that if you felt it, you would get a different perspective on things. And that's all. I wasn't trying to say you don't work as hard as I do, or that your hard work doesn't matter. I think that that's, not very fair. but I could understand if they took it that way. But yeah, I mean, I read a lot of comments, and some of the people were just being extremely sensitive, which then I thought was funny for a bit, because I distinctly remember many times where media members are saying that fighters are so sensitive. And then when it got flipped around, I thought that some of the media members were being pretty sensitive. But obviously not the ones that knew me. So yeah, all in all, it was a great conversation to have.
Cub, my question regarding that is, did it seem to be more contentious public, like on Twitter? Like what you said, it stayed pretty friendly and some arguing. Or how was the private side, the DM side? Was that more contentious? How would you compare the two?
Well, the private messages I got, it wasn't really anyone attacking me. I think the people that had something to say said it on Twitter. The most of the media that reached out to me were like, "Hey, come on my show and we can discuss this," you know. So they just kind of wanted to ride the wave, in which I really didn't have a desire to do. I was more looking. It really made me want to book a fight just so I could fight and then sit there in front of everyone and say, "Ask me to my face." You know, like I have no problem having this discussion. You know, I'd rather do it that way than on the internet.
Yeah, well, you know, I know those words have come out of my mouth before where I've said I believe fighters are sensitive but I believe that coming from a world of watching sports as a fan, well, when the Lakers get blown out 100-80, 20 points, that's a blowout.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody goes, "Hey, how'd the Lakers do last night?" I can say they sucked, man. They got blown out.
Yeah.
And so when you correlate that to this sport, if someone gets iced in 2 minutes, they don't suck. I would never say that, but it just wasn't their best performance. So, you know, it's up to, I think, people to paint the picture of how did the fight go? Well, one guy iced the other one, or however it is. You know, some people were more graphic. He cleaned his clock, he blew him out, you know, whatever. And I've always felt like if fighters could just understand that the result goes along with if it goes along with the description and it's not personal, then I don't think it's too bad, you know.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the Lakers can win tomorrow, 100-70, and we can write about how they blew them out and how great LeBron and Anthony Davis were, and they're millionaires, you know what I mean? Whereas our sport, we're clawing and digging, you know what I mean? And an article like that can bury a fighter, and maybe he or she doesn't get rebooked for 6 months, and you know that sucks because you need 6 months to clobber someone else before you can get that out. And that's why I love it when you guys climb the cage and flip, because I imagine you've been holding on to all of those emotions. So it's kind of tough to cut to I guess for a lot of people. Plus, a lot of people, I don't know that they express themselves well. But I totally understood your side, because when you see that their ankle is 70%, you know, but they're still hobbling in there and they're being taped up. And we see some of that at the gyms, you know what I mean? Or someone is had a horrible weight cut. Somebody's dealing with different stressors, you know, the stuff that you don't see behind the scenes. And yet they still make the walk. They still get in that cage. They lock the cage. And for a second, you may be thinking, gee, he doesn't look like he had a rough camp. You know, he looks like he's ready to go, you know, and I'm thinking about my ankle. I'm thinking about maybe I got clipped in practice 2 weeks ago. That's the stuff that I think you have every right to say what you said in terms of experiences that people haven't seen. You know what I mean? So I understood both sides of it, honestly. I thought it was great discussion. I didn't think it was anything that anybody needed to get their panties twisted about. So.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was great discussion, and the people that took it really offensively, I was like, okay, wow. Well, first of all, I'm sorry, but I think you're blowing it out of proportion. And like I said, yeah, it was great discussion. But yeah, just to give you an example, like I talked about this many times. When I fought in WEC, I broke my hand a week before the fight, right? And if you break your hand 4 weeks before the fight, you can't really, there's some critical time, and you can't really maintain your cardio, your shape, with a broken hand, right? But because I broke my hand exactly a week before the fight, my training was done. All I had to do was make weight. So I had the option of pulling out of the fight, which I don't make any money. I actually lose money because I spent all the money training, or I suck it up and do the fight. So, I said, yeah, I'll do the fight, and went, through with it. But, the morning of the fight, I start to ask myself, like, who are you to think you could go out there and beat someone at the highest level with one hand, like, and two legs? It's a huge disadvantage. Of course, your ego is telling you, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. And your cornermen's, they're trying to help you out and say, kind of boost your ego and your confidence. But at the end of the day, it's terrifying. So to go in that and face those demons in front of a live crowd and, on national TV. And then if luckily I was able to win, but say you go out there and you lose and get criticized. And if you make an excuse, you make excuses, and oh, now he's making excuses. It's like, man, you don't even know what it was like to even step in there. Like, it took everything in me to be man enough to step in that octagon and do what I said I was going to do when I signed the dotted line. So I think sometimes fighters get that feeling of, hey, you don't know what I've been going through, and that's not necessarily your guys' fault, and you guys got to do your job. So I think it was a wishful thinking of, hey, sometimes I wish that more media members could understand exactly where we're coming from and know what it's like to be on that emotional roller coaster, let alone being, thrown so many more, family issues or injuries, or your coach can't make it last minute. There's so many stressors that you can't even talk about, because then you put it in the media and then it's like a frenzy. That's all anyone wants to talk about. Oh, so-and-so, I heard they're hurt, or so-and-so, had a family issue right before the fight. I think he's going to do terrible. So you got to kind of hold it in, and you can't talk about it, and it gets stressful.
On the flip side, did you have a lot of your colleagues, like fellow fighters, via DM, get them, Cub? Like, did you have support, like a cavalry for you versus the fans and media that might have, like, been pushing back towards what you said?
No, actually, the only just training partners were just like, hey, that tweet you did kind of blew up, huh? And I was like, yeah, I didn't expect it to. And they were just kind of laughing about some of the comments, and that was it. That nobody really reached out. If they did, it was on Twitter.
Cub, I want to finish up with the best part, I think, that will be about this interview, and that's talking about your best friend and manager, Kami Safardi. I hope I pronounced his name correctly.
Safdari.
Safdari, sorry. He rode the whole way with you, and he wasn't just your manager. He was your best friend. I'm sure you guys sweat together and cried together, and you guys negotiated together. He was the best man at your wedding. Like, he's a big part of your life. How are you and your family doing now, and how do you feel you'll be carrying Kami for the rest of your career in these fights? The same way he was right there with you. He'll be with you, but in a different way. Can you talk about your emotions and how you are processing his passing?
It's been difficult, yeah, he was, we were able to have a small ceremony, and I was a little worried about talking, but I felt like I had to. And I just, I said that, he started off as my manager, became kind of a mentor, and then more of a father figure, and then like an older brother. And then, we became equals, you know, like in business and everything that we tried to do business wise, it was like 50-50, you know, we do this together. So it was very big for me to be coming from, you know, kind of a rough, you know, a rough background and being in the spot I am now to being, you know, pretty popular around the world because of this sport, and being able to have a couple businesses and do well for myself because of his guidance. You know, a lot of people didn't know, but he was an anesthesiologist. He was a full-time doctor. And he managed me, you know, just as a passion. And so, yeah, he meant the world to me. And it's been difficult. He had a little 11-month-old son. He just turned 1. He comes over all the time, trying to, you know, keep him around my family. But yeah, it's I've been seeing a sports psychologist, you know, just to make sure that I deal with it appropriately. You know, as fighters, we tend to compartmentalize and stuff things down, and kind of like what I was explaining earlier, it's kind of a wave of emotions. You know, you get a fight, you're excited, a little scared sometimes, just because you just don't want to disappoint anyone or have a bad performance. So I know it can usually pour out towards the end of camp when you don't have any other distractions, and it's just you're just, you know, kind of chilling fight week trying to make weight. They can pour out sometimes. So yeah, I started talking to somebody and trying to work all those things out now so that I'm better prepared for fight time. I felt like it would be a terrible thing to not, you know, be man enough to ask for help and you know, work those things out before the fight, so that way I can, you know, have a performance that people expect of me.
Well, let me tell you something, man. We knew that guy, you know, for a long time, and this sport is full of great people, but they're vastly outnumbered by shady people, people
Yeah.
that care more about themselves than others. He was one of the great ones. I love talking to him, and he was always proud of you. You know, he spoke of you like a big brother, sometimes like a son. But I just love that he knew everything about you because he basically was with you for the whole ride, you know. But man, that guy was all class. I did not know that he was a doctor until I saw you post about it, and I was like, you could tell there was professionalism and tact, and you know, when we spoke to him, he was really a classy guy. You know, and again, we're sorry for your loss, but we can't speak enough about that guy because he did it the right way. You know what I mean? So I think you're going to carry a lot of that with you, you know, for the rest of your career because of him, and he'll always be looking down and be very proud of you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I feel very fortunate. I learned a lot from him, and you know, he mentored me for years, and you know, I get the opportunity to hopefully mentor his son. So, like to, you know, pay it forward. And his son looks just like him. So, you know, it reminds me of him all the time. But yeah, you know, Kami was a class act. He got criticized for carrying too much, and you know, people thought that he was a little like overbearing on me, but I appreciated his honesty. I appreciated the level of interest he always had in you know, how I was preparing. We argued all the time. he was literally the only person to call up and make sure that I was training and question if I was training hard, which would make me angry, make me train harder. And if I lost, he wouldn't be afraid to tell me that I was slacking it or I need to change things up. And I appreciated that. You know, I never surrounded myself with a bunch of yes people. He shot me straight all the time, and so yeah, I've appreciated that, and I'll miss that for sure from him.
Wow. So he was really honest with you. He knew what buttons to push, huh?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because we would laugh. That there was one when I lost to Aldo. I had this big gash on my eye. You could see my skull. It was pretty ugly, and so they took me to the doctor. Me and Uriah both were there, and he had fought Mike Brown, and they were gonna do stitches in my eye, and he never said that he was a doctor. He just asked the lady, "Oh wait, how many layers are you gonna do?" And she looked at him and was like, "I don't know. I'll figure it out when I start." And he was like, "No, he's a professional fighter. You can't just sew him up without having a plan. If you don't do it the right way, it's going to give him problems down the road. You need to do it correctly." And she got so upset. And then I started telling them, "Hey, back off. Like, let her, like, she's about to stick this needle in my face. Could you not piss her off?" Um, and it was just funny because that was him. He wanted to make sure that his guys were always taken care of. And, he didn't never tell people, "Well, I'm a doctor. That's why I'm asking." She just thought he was just some guy getting in her business. So it was kind of funny, but yeah, it was good times like that all the time.
Yeah, definitely, man. No, that's a great story. Thanks for sharing. All right, listen, Cub, it's going to be a great fight between you and Giga Chikadze. A buddy of mine told him, "Man, that's a high-level striker he's facing." And I remember him telling me when you were going to fight Crone, he goes, "That's a high-level grappler he's facing." But that time I told him, "Yeah, and he's having trouble finding partners because I remember what was happening with the Gracie blockade or whatever." But this time I told him, I go, Cub's a high-level MMA fighter. Like, it's funny because I'm not taking anything from Giga at all. He's an amazing striker, right? Or Crone, he's an amazing grappler, but it's the way you blend them, right? You got to blend them all. And I think in this game, you'd probably rather be the great MMA fighter who can blend them all versus the specialist. But again, that said, both guys definitely are gangsters as well. So I'm really much looking forward to this fight versus Giga Chikadze. I can already tell it's going to be one of those potential fight of the year candidates.
Hey, well, if it happens, I'll take it. As long as I get some kind of bonus, I'm always happy.
Hey, lift up your shirt one time because people need to know about the Killer Cub. I love that. Look at that. Yeah. We have some of the most gangster gear in terms of the hats and the shirts. You can see a lot of that. I see a lot of that. What's up?
My next, I had to sit down after my last fight with Virus because we've been together for so long. They're my clothing sponsor, and they've been with me for 10 years. They gave me a call one day, and I had my jaw wired shut. It was at a low point, and they said, "Hey, we really want to work with you. We've known you since a couple of the guys had been back at the Tap Out crew, and they wanted to work with me, and it's just been loyalty ever since." So I always appreciated them, but they're gonna start doing a little bit bigger of a Killer Cub line, and the next line that's coming out is a little gangster. So I think you guys will dig it.
Very cool.
I think I have a cool shirt too. You guys remember this one?
Oh yeah, OG.
Oh shit! Yeah,
the original grappler shirt.
Kami gave me this one.
So Kami and his cousin had started that company, and I believe Georgie Konkarian is the owner of it currently, and just opened the OG Training Center in Riverside. So I'm gonna be checking that out here pretty soon. Georgie's we've been training partners for like 15 years.
Nice. All right, Cub. Well, hey, the time always flies with you. Thanks for spending some time with us here. And we look forward to your fight on May 1st against Giga Chikadze.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.